Yeah, look out for the cops.
Let me start out by saying that a lot of the stuff that we find on the internet is just wrong. When I first started doing my research for this song, I took a look at 3 different websites that are pretty well known for doing key detection and BPM detection. And I gotta say, all 3 of them were wrong. 2 of them said that the song was in the key of B minor, and the other one said that it was just B, and none of those are right. Now, this particular Wu-Tang track is a really well-known piano cut from the album, and I really got to shout out RZA on this track, because while I know he didn't play the piano on this and that it's a sample, he's really got an ear for this kind of thing, and he truly is a master of his craft. Let's get into a little light music theory. So, what key is this song? The actual key signature of the track is E major, but it's a little more complicated than that. You see, the chord E and the note E aren't even made that big of a deal of in this track. But how is that even a thing? You see, every key signature in the Western music system has 7 notes, and therefore also have 7 modes. So this riff begins and it resolves on F sharp Dorian, and the only discernible chord that I'm hearing is F sharp minor. So what gives a note or a tone its unique voice or a feeling within a scale is its relationship to the key of that scale, or the root note of that scale, which is also referred to as the tonal center. And likewise, every note of the scale has a feeling, kind of like a feeling associated with it, that has to do with its relationship to the intervals or the spacing of a scale, and kind of like its position within that scale and the spacings that surround its placement. So depending on who you ask, and most likely where you come from in the world, the measurement for how far it is from one note to the next note, or from one note to 2 notes up, is either called a half step and a step, or a semitone and a tone. Now, a half step and a semitone are exactly the same thing, and a step and a tone are exactly the same thing. A half step is from G to G sharp. A whole step is from G to A, and likewise, a tone is from G to A. So when we're referring to different modes of a scale, we're always referring to it in reference back to the major key signature, or the Ionian mode, the 1 mode. So to be clear, every major key is also known as the Ionian mode, the first mode, and every Ionian mode has the same pattern of intervals. But what makes the 4 and the 5 major chords sound different than the 1 major chord are their relative placements in that scale relating back to the tonal center, or the 1 chord. Okay, I hope you're still with me. The 1 chord is always called the tonic. It's your main major chord. The 4 chord is called the subdominant, and the 5 chord is called the dominant. Okay, the other main mode that most people are familiar with and is used quite a bit is the 6th mode. It is also referred to as the minor scale and is also referred to as the Aeolian mode. But we're not dealing with any of that here with this song. What we are looking at today is actually the 2nd mode of the scale. It's referred to as the Dorian mode. Dorian tends to sound sophisticated and a little bit sad, but kind of in a hopeful way. Now, I don't pretend to be any kind of great keyboard player. I usually make do, though. What I tend to do when I'm trying to learn something new, especially if it's a little bit complicated, is I take the loop and just slow down the BPM, and I practice it over and over and over, and I just practice it a bunch until I really have the feel of it, and the feeling, the timing feels right before I ever try to record it. for all you guitar players out there, here's a way that you could play it on the guitar. There are other ways, but this is the position I chose to play the riff in. What's really interesting about this riff is the note that makes it distinctively Dorian and definitely not F sharp minor or Aeolian. That note is played very last, and the sequence kind of dances around that note a little bit before it ever plays it. It's the very last note played while the riff is descending back down to its root on the 2 Dorian note, F sharp. It's really interesting because until it plays that note, it could easily be F sharp minor. That note is the 6th position in our scale. It's D sharp. Had that note been flat by a half step, it would have been a D, and that would have made this scale F sharp minor. And that would have totally changed the melody altogether. That one note would have completely changed this thing. It would actually sound, it would still sound okay. Well, let me just show you. Now, there are a couple differences between F sharp Aeolian, called F sharp minor, and F sharp Dorian. F sharp minor is based on the A major scale, and it is its 6th note and its 6th mode. While F sharp Dorian is based on the E major scale, and it is its 2nd note and mode. But the most notable difference between the two is that if you start from the 1st note of each mode, F sharp, they differ in their 6th note. F sharp Dorian has a 6th note that is raised a half step when compared to F sharp Aeolian. It has a D sharp rather than a D note. Okay, so what if the riff was played in F sharp minor or F sharp Aeolian? First, real quick, take a listen to the scale by itself. And now, take a listen to the riff as if it was played in that scale. Now, for shits and giggles, let's do a couple more comparisons. First, let's listen to E major, or the Ionian mode of this key signature. And let's again listen to F sharp Dorian. Notice how the two, although they have the same exact notes, just different starting and ending points, notice how they feel a good bit different from one another. And let's do one more back-to-back comparison. First, let's listen to F sharp minor. And now let's listen to F sharp Dorian. Now, you could make the argument that at the time, RZA didn't really know anything about this kind of music theory and that he wasn't aware of it. But I think him discovering it meant that he discovered a feeling. He discovered a vibe that really kind of set the song off. Had it been E major, or had it even been F minor, the vibe would have been completely different. But this song is super powerful and probably even influenced how the rest of the crew wrote their lyrics and spit their flow and all that kind of stuff, all based on that feel that was given from F-sharp Dorian. Now, I want to show you a couple common chord progressions that are used with the Dorian mode, and we'll keep them in F-sharp for now so that we don't make things confusing. And I want to include a few tips on how to think about jamming and riffing over the Dorian mode. Okay, here's a variation you could try. It basically starts out on F-sharp minor, and then it kind of floats around between B and A major. And you can kind of experiment with different variations of this. Okay, here's one that would probably be used on something like a bridge. It starts out with an A, actually, and descends down to F sharp minor. It's A, G sharp minor, F sharp minor. And then it would probably resolve back to E for the next part of the song. So the first tip is to remember that you're basically jamming out in E major, but you're starting and ending back on the second spot in E major. Another tip is to think of your chord shapes or the notes within whatever chord you're playing. Your jamming doesn't always have to follow the chords exactly, but as a good example, when you're playing F sharp minor, I tend to play the note A a lot more often than I would play a G sharp, because A's in the chord of F sharp minor. It doesn't mean you can't play it, but I wouldn't really like stay on it. It would be more like a passing note or an incidental. So remember to keep it fun and to have fun. Don't be afraid to experiment. Try things. You know, it's okay to pull in notes that aren't even in the key. Music's about making it make sense. Unless the point of your track's for it to be chaotic and have a lot of tension in it, then it doesn't necessarily have to make sense. But be willing to experiment and remember to have fun. And until I talk to you next time, remember to treat all your people really well, because life is short. Have a good one.